Hello and welcome, FPL managers, and welcome to the Zonal Weakness brought to you by Gone Football Fantasy, powered by Fantasy Football Scout. And I think this is the first one that we're doing for this season. And I hope the first game week went well for a lot of managers. Not so much for me, but still, FPL is not a sprint, rather, it's a marathon. So surely there's a lot of time to catch up. But we're back with the Zonal, and we'll be doing it. And this season, I do not have any partners to do it with me, so I'll be doing it all by myself. So hopefully, it'll be regular, and I hope you enjoy it. I'll try and make sure that it's done in a manner and on a regular basis, so that you continue to get the updates that you need. So let's get started quickly. This is, of course, the Zonal for the game week 2. And if you haven't followed or like to subscribe to our X, Facebook, and YouTube channel, please do so now. Otherwise, you will be missing out the Zonal weakness. And of course, Gone Football Fantasy is the network of the Fantasy Football Scout. And if you're interested in the data and, of course, in Fantasy Football Scout membership, there's currently an offer ongoing, annual membership for only £50. So click in the link in the description below and you'll be able to get that access. And of course, it provides all the interesting data and the tools, including the zonal data. But the tool that is most promising is the Rate My Team. So currently, if your team is looking bad and you're not confident about how your team is looking, I think this is the one that you should be taking and using it, because it's quite accurate, I would rather say it. Yeah. But anyway, let's move on to the zonal weakness. And just before we get started, I just want to mention one thing. It's just a 1 week games data. So 1 game week's data. So it's not really very certain. And it's not really going to give you the accurate picture. There's going to be a lot of changes in terms of the transfers that's coming in terms of the team shape that's going to take up, and in terms of the players that's going to make it to the main 11. And of course, the data is going to be there only for a single or 2 game weeks later on. So unless it's not really 4 game weeks, we can't really give you a little bit of clear picture as to which zonal is actually the weak one for the other teams. So that's something to just keep in mind. So I do not want you to actually focus on this as a sort of like a concrete tool at this moment. But rather, I think as the data gets heavier, and by the time we are in game week 4, we'll be able to give you a little bit of more clear picture as to which team is really looking weak and which zonal is actually looking weak. So I think that will give you a much better picture. But for now, the zonal weakness can be used as something that perhaps most of us FPL managers do at the beginning of the season, is that we keep a lot of players on the watch list. And I think these numbers will just inform you whether you should be keeping them in the watch list or whether you should be removing them. And yeah, so I think it's more from the watch list point of view rather than from the transfer point of view. That's the main point that I was trying to make sure that it comes across. So just to be clear, so let's get started. And of course, the first match is between Aston Villa and Arsenal, and of course, Arsenal doing wonders. Aston Villa wasn't really doing wonders against Brighton, ended up conceding 4 goals, and they're playing now the champions. So Arsenal did very well in their opening match against Coventry. So what we do really see here is that Aston Villa have actually conceded 4 chances down the right flank and are ranked 5th. This is where Zolis is playing. Now, Zolis has been showing this form in the lead up to the Premier League. In the pre-seasons, he kind of performed and then translated that particular form into the Premier League, at least in the first game week. He should have had a double digit, but unfortunate that he didn't. So he's going to occupy this particular right flank of Aston Villa. So that's something to keep an eye where Aston Villa is ranked 5th. Down the center, it's going to be Havertz who's going to occupy that space. I think he's going to be, my assumption is he's going to be in the team lineup. So do keep an eye if you're looking for a third striker, and if you're not going with Haaland and you have enough money to spend. So Havertz could be a good option. But again, keep him on the watch list, because Aston Villa have actually considered 7 chances down the center and are ranked 2nd. Calafiori is, I think, the best defensive options looking right now in terms of the price, as well as in terms of the DEFCON and the attacking potential. A lot of managers have gone with Gabriel, but a lot of managers have also opted for Calafiori. And I think in terms of what we have seen in Game Week 1, and a lot of FPL managers anticipated that they didn't want to really make their sacrifice their team entirely for trying to put forcefully Gabriel into the team. So they opted for Calafiori, and I think Calafiori, along with White, kind of contributed. So the double Arsenal defense did look good, and I think this is going to be another good match for them, likely to be. Moving on to the second one, and this is against Crystal Palace versus Manchester City. Now, Crystal Palace down the right flank have actually considered 8 chances and are ranked second. This is where Semenyo and O'Reilly is playing. I think Semenyo is playing a little wide. In the first match, at least that's what we noticed. But O'Reilly looked good, although unfortunately he wasn't able to keep the clean sheet. But I think O'Reilly is likely to do well in this particular match as well against Crystal Palace. And Haaland, yeah, with a short haircut, nothing much to say. Haaland being Haaland. I think Cherki changed the match against Bournemouth a little bit. Until then, Manchester City really didn't look like a Manchester City team, and they were down by 1-0, but then Cherki came in and changed the game a little bit. So whether he makes it to the main team or not is something to wait and watch. I think his time minutes is a bit of a concern. Otherwise, I think he would be a bandwagon right now. So O'Reilly and Cherki are the ones that I would keep an eye on from the Manchester City side. With 3 chances considered down the centre by Crystal Palace, they are ranked fourth down the centre. Everton versus Bournemouth, and of course Everton have considered 6 chances down the right flank and are ranked fourth. This is where Tavernier is going to play. He scored against City, so I think he's likely going to continue this and exploit this particular zone. Everton looked good defensively, not so much in terms of attacking potentials, except Dewsbury Hall. But looking at it from the Bournemouth point of view, I think Ivan Lisson is another player that caught my attention. So those are the 2 players from Bournemouth that I will keep an eye on while this match is ongoing between Everton. So yeah, that's that. From the Bournemouth's point of view, I think NDIA is a good option, at least on this pay Zonal with 1 week games data. I think he's the one who's looking a good option. But NDIA has some linkages in terms of the transfers. There's speculations or rumors about him moving to City, so I think that could affect his minutes as well, and whether he'll make it to the team or not. But that's something not we are here to predict. But yeah, just keep that information in mind while you're trying to select NDIA, and I think he's the only player that really look good in terms of 5.5 striker. I think Barry was the best option that I found. I think he still is going to look good. In terms of the chances considered down the centre, really doesn't really look good for Barry this game week, with Bournemouth only considering 2 chances down the centre. So yeah, something. But again, keep Barry and NDIA in your watch list if that's what you're looking for. Newcastle versus Tottenham. Now Tottenham really didn't do well. A lot of managers went with Kinski and were hoping to get something out of it, but already Savinho is back, and their other players are back as well. Newcastle has actually considered 6 chances down the centre and are ranked third. That's where Richarlison and Solanke is going to play. Now, I'm not going to suggest these 2 players at least as part of your watch list, but I think just watch how De Zerbi starts to shape Tottenham, and I think this could be a good game week to see that. Savinho is back again, so again, that's something to keep an eye as to how he performs for Tottenham around the left flank. For Newcastle, the player that really caught my eye, or at least I think the one that the video was making rounds, and that's Elanga. And that's where you can see that Tottenham have actually considered 10 chances down the left flank and are ranked second. So Elanga could again be among the names in the score sheet in terms of the assist or the goals. And I think that's the only player that I'm really keeping an eye on. Lewis Hall is also likely to do well, with Tottenham conceding 7 chances and ranked third. But again, these are not transfer options. These are players to watch based on the 1 week game data. We can't be very certain about it. But I just want to keep repeating that because in case somebody feels that we are trying to make a strong suggestion for a transfer. We are not actually. We are just asking you to keep an eye on these kind of players because their zonal based on 1 week game data looks good. Sorry. Um, Chelsea versus Brighton, and I think Yao Pedro, I really don't have to say much. I think he's done wonders in the previous match, 1 goal and assist, and he did great. And yeah, and I think this match, Brighton kept a clean sheet in the previous match, so they did really perform defensively very well. So only 3 chances considered, but still ranked fourth. And Yao Pedro could be among the scorers, and whether they'll be able to break down the resolute Brighton defense is something that we need to keep an eye on. But Brighton really looks good, and that's where if I really look at from the Chelsea defensive point of view, um, Hinchelwood, who's a sort of like a 6.6 million or 5.5 million player, I think he's the one that really caught my eye. The other player that really caught my attention, and I know his Zonal is not really looking great at this moment, 𝐙𝐸 𝐖𝐞𝐚𝐤, and I think he started today's match and again provided a goal and an assist. So I think the position that he's occupying is pretty threatening. So he's the one really to keep a good eye on, 𝐸𝐸 and Hinchelwood from Brighton. And I think Brighton is really looking like a good team. And I don't know if against Chelsea they'll be able to play the same way that the way they played in the previous match. But yeah, something to keep an eye on. And those are the 2 players from Brighton that I'll be seriously eyeing them up. Moving on to the next slide, and this is Hull City versus Coventry. Now, those both teams are from the newly promoted teams, so both of them played in the championship. And if I look at the previous season score, it has been a very close matchup. So not really expecting a lot of goals in this match. And of course, the data looks a little bit skewed because Coventry played against Arsenal. Hull, of course, won against Manchester City, but again, their data still looks bad. But do note again, just a reminder that it's just a 1 game mixed data, so nothing can be made certain about it, and this is not a very evidence-based and well-informed decision. But these are the players that really stands out from this team. But again, this game is likely to be a cagey affair and could be a low-scoring game. Leeds against Nottingham Forest really performed while playing away and kept a clean sheet. Nottingham Forest didn't manage to score, so that's something to keep an eye on. However, Brentford is going to play Leeds this time. And the player that really caught everybody's attention was Sangare. But his stats is not really looking good because Leeds have kept just 2 chances they have considered down the center and are ranked 11th. But Dango Otara, I think there's a lot of favorites and there's a lot of love for him. So he's the one to keep an eye on again, with 5 chances considered down the left flank by Leeds, and they're ranked 4th. So something to keep an eye on. And Coyote is also a good option. So just keep that in mind. I'm not really going to look at Shada and Lewis Potter at this moment. I know Lewis Potter scored a goal, but I think Brentford as a team was really looking great. So just keep an eye on Sangare, Otara, and Coyote. I think those are the 3 players that I would really keep an eye on. And I think Sangare's price have already increased. I had him in my team, but I benched him. So it's unfortunate. I opted for Maguire and wanted to give Sangare a little bit of time to go and see how he adjusts to the Premier League. And boy, he did deliver. And it did hurt me at least because Maguire didn't really get the clean sheet, and all my points Sangare was on the bench. Brentford versus Leeds will still remain in the same fixture with Leeds. Looking at the Leeds asset and looking at the Brentford's defensive numbers, I think DCL and Stash, I think there's not much concern about DCL's minutes, but I'm not quite sure if I would be able to trust him at this moment. But Stash was on a player that I would really keep an eye on. He was on the set pieces, and obviously he was playing a little bit more centrally, looking at the 1 match heat map. And yeah, Brentford have conceded 3 chances down the centre and are ranked 4th. Ipswich is playing Manchester United. This is Manchester United's home game, so Ipswich numbers are not really looking that bad. So only I think the Dorgu is the one player that really stands out. Those who are captaining Bruno Fernandes, just note that Ipswich have only considered 1 chances down the centre and are ranked 18th. So not really much hope there. I would really prefer Haaland as a captain option this week rather than Fernandes, given this particular set of data, but also the fact that there's this. I'm not sure whether it's true or not that the statistics that's making rounds on social media is that Bruno's never scored on the second game in the second game week, and also yeah, I think Manchester United disappointed a little bit, and Haaland's record against Crystal Palace is actually much stronger with 5 goal. I think 8 goals in 5 matches, if I remember that correctly. So yeah, looking at the zonal and also looking at the individual stats of the players against the opponent that they are facing, my opinion is Haaland is a better captain shout than Fernandes, and this kind of it's a bit of a confirmation bias, but again, not something to really take very seriously. But again, the decision lies with you. Um, Sunderland versus Fulham, and I think the one player that has really caught my attention is Garcia and Zhao King and Josh King, sorry. And I think the way they were building up and the partnership that was there and the linkages that they were showing, both were really connecting with one another. And I think there's a bit of a strong linkage between two. Garcia has come from Real Madrid along with Arbeloa. So that's something that we can, and of course, Sunderland have actually considered 3 chances down the center and are ranked fourth. Unfortunate that a lot of us have actually went to a double Sunderland defense, hoping that they would return or continue their previous game mix, previous season's defensive performances. Not really so in the first game week, but again, this is a 38 game weeks season, so there's a lot to play for. So this could be a game that we could watch. But again, watch Garcia and the way he connects with Josh King. Josh King is, of course, an old FPL troll. So for those of you who have played this game for a very long time. From the Fulham and Sunderland game point of view, I think Lefi is the only one that I would go with. He's the only one that really looked a little bit more stronger beside Ballard as a defensive option. But again, down the center, I think Fulham have actually considered 10 chances and are ranked the worst. So I think Lefi could have a chance, and he's, of course, on set pieces. So that's something to keep an eye on. Yeah. Nottingham Forest and Liverpool, I'm not really going to touch much. There's no green really. And on top of that, I think Nottingham Forest really looked a little bit solid in defensive way. I think they were a bit unlucky to concede that goal at the last moment. But yeah, still, I think this is going to be quite an interesting game. So I wouldn't really make a shout out about any of the Liverpool assets that are going to face Nottingham Forest this week. Moving on, and let's have a look at the first team of the week for this season for Game Week 2. And of course, obviously, Haaland and João Pedro, and I think that's quite a common combination. Haaland didn't score, but has an excellent record against Crystal Palace, as I mentioned earlier. And I think this could be a game week where he would do well. And I think it's one of the teams that Haaland finds quite comfortable and enjoys playing, given that the record that he holds against Crystal Palace. João Pedro, nothing much to really say. I think he's kind of proven already how good he was, and I can, along with Palmer, he was really looking sharp. So that's rightly so. Zolis and Odegaard, we've already mentioned both of them really look great. Zolis already provided a lot of points, Odegaard as well. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. And Aston Villa really looked shaky against in the first match. I think they had a bit of a defensive collapse, but not expecting that similar sort of a performance this game week. But again, Arsenal could actually use it to their advantage and press a little bit harder and probably make sure that they end up scoring goals. Tavernier, as I discussed, and Hinselwood is something that I told. Cherky is somebody that I would not really bother right now unless his minutes are confirmed. Calafiori, we have discussed it quite a lot in details, as well as O'Reilly. Lewis Hall is somebody to keep an eye on, given that he is also playing quite well and looked quite attacking. Alisson, of course, is likely to keep a clean sheet, given the fact that they're playing against Nottingham Forest. And Nottingham Forest attacking-wise didn't really look that great, to be honest. So a lot of hope is still on Glasner, but let's have a look and wait. So yeah, that's that, and I think that's it for today. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed it. Do let me know if you have any comments, and drop your comments, of course. And we'll be back next week again with the zonal weakness, with a little bit of more data added to the already data that we've managed to collect. yeah, so it will only get better, the zonal weakness. And after game week 4, I think we'll be able to give a much more better view and with a bit of a certainty and evidence that, this particular team is looking really weak down the particular zone. But until then, all the very best for the upcoming game week and good night. Take care.